So, at the time of recording this video, the first of the new 2023 F1 cars have been released, courtesy of Haas. So, I thought I'd take this point to get in early before pre-season testing and, well, take a gamble really at my predictions for the upcoming season. Now, this is purely literally just speculation from like the evidence of last year and what we could potentially see, not actual like evidence from testing, because that would be a little bit too easy. So let's just get straight into it with number one, the most obvious one, 2023 World Champion, and I'm sorry to say, it's going to be Max Verstappen. Now, this is not really going to be a surprise to anyone, primarily because the car itself is going to carry over into this year, was already a beast as it is, and of course, the lenient punishment Red Bull got for breaking the cost cap is pretty much not going to affect them in any way, shape, or form. And as a result, number two, Red Bull will once again retain the Constructors' Championship. Now, again, not a surprise considering what happened last year with the whole cost cap fiasco and the lenient punishment that went with it, so don't be really surprised if this is the case. But let's have a look at what's behind them. Number three, challenging for second place will be once again Charles Leclerc. And in third will be Lewis Hamilton. Now, this is a little bit going to be a little bit of a gamble considering how bad the Mercedes was last year, but Mercedes have been known to iron out problems like this. I mean, they had problems with their 2017 and 2018 cars that they were able to get on top of with pretty quickly. So I am being a little bit optimistic with this one, but I do think that both Lewis and Charles will actually push Max this time to probably the second or third last race of the season, but it's still not going to be quite enough to overhaul the Red Bull advantage. As for the second drivers, for number four, I'm going to put them in the order of George Russell, Carlos Sainz, and then Sergio Perez. Now, George did have a very consistent start to the 2022 season, but as we then found out, Lewis was running more experiments for the car to try and get it to behave properly. And when he wasn't doing those experiments in the second half of the season, he ruffled George's feathers quite a bit. As such, George made pretty inconsistent mistakes and reckless moves here and there. Although he did get the win in the Brazilian Grand Prix, there were there were people saying, "Oh, if Lewis's car wasn't damaged, then he wouldn't have won. Lewis would have." But you know, Lewis's car did get damaged, and George did win. That's like part and part of racing, unfortunately. Now, Carlos Sainz, it's very, very difficult. He did have a good initial season in 2021, his first drive for Ferrari. But throughout 2022, aside from the one win in Silverstone, he didn't really make the necessary mark that he should have. I mean, it was always going to be difficult to beat Charles, but I would have thought, considering how consistent that Carlos is known to be, I thought he would have been a little bit closer. But in any case, I don't expect him to beat Charles this year, but I do expect him to be at least closer on pace and maybe in the points as well. But that's just optimism at this point talking. Now, Sergio Perez in P6. Now, I'm going to make this abundantly clear into my next option. Now, Sergio Perez, I'm just going to come out and say it for my next prediction, and that is Sergio Perez will retire at the end of 2023. Look, Checo remaining in the sport after the whole thing with Aston Martin taking over in 2021 and hiring Sebastian Vettel, leaving him with no drive. I was happy that Checo did find a drive, but not happy that it was at Red Bull. I would not touch that Red Bull second car with a hazmat suit. That thing is cursed beyond belief, and it's shown over the last two seasons. We saw in Monaco last year that Perez and beat Verstappen on genuine merit. The next 3 races, Perez struggled to get within 3/4 of a second of Verstappen anywhere. What does that say? Typical Red Bull politics. Okay, now on to where a majority of the action is going to be taking place, the midfield. And I'm going to say that this year it will be Alpine that will be best of the rest over McLaren. Now, there's going to be a lot of brouhaha about this, but bear with me. Both teams are going to have new drivers joining their teams this year. Piastri at McLaren and Gasly at Alpine. However, Gasly has been in this sport for far longer than Piastri, so experience is going to help there. Gasly has also shown that when the machinery is under him, he can deliver results beyond what the car is capable of. But there is going to be a caveat to all this, as my next prediction, Ocon and Gasly are going to come to blows this season. Now, there's been no secret about the on and off-track behaviour between the two since their friendship broke down, what was it, 4 years ago now? But that kind of tension is not going to go away, and I always had a feeling that this might be the case should they end up in the same team together. And that will be either Ocon or Gasly is going to end up crashing into the other at some point. And then let's just watch the sparks fly. Meanwhile, over at McLaren, Piastri will beat Norris. You heard me. Now, Lando is shown to be a very good driver. He's had multiple podiums for McLaren and has locked into a very long-term deal with them. But I do feel that Piastri is going to give Lando the challenge that Ricciardo could not. Also, it showed last year in certain races that Norris had, well, a lack of drive per se. He wasn't really driving with the same, zest and, how shall I put it, the same eagerness that he had in the first 2 seasons. But I think with a young teammate, and an exciting teammate at that, is going to change that. But I do feel that Oscar will outperform Norris majority of the races, I would say. Not ridiculous, I would say 12 races to 11. But it will amount to Piastri being more consistent than Norris and finishing ahead of him on all those occasions. Now down to the far end of the grid, the back markers. Well, I say back markers, they're not really, they're the tail end of the field. Out of those 3 teams, Haas, Alfa Romeo and Williams, I'm actually going to say Alfa Romeo will finish in front of Haas and Williams will resume their place at the back of the grid. Now, this is a playing it safe option. I don't know if Alfa Romeo will improve, because recently it has been confirmed that Audi have now bought a minority stake in the team, So the deal is pretty much going to be a guarantee for 2026. But I do feel that Sauber, the team who actually run Alfa Romeo, will want to show great improvement for Audi before it comes into the sport. So I'm going to put Alfa Romeo in P8, but I'm going to have them nipping at the heels of both Aston Martin and AlphaTauri. Aston Martin finishing ahead of AlphaTauri this year, I should point out. But for Alfa Romeo, this is going to be key for the next 3 seasons, because they need to start making progress before Audi come in, so they have a genuine chance of at least fighting, at the very minimum, the top of the midfield. Haas, with its driver lineup of, again, very tenuous driver lineup of Hülkenberg and Magnussen, I think they're going to plateau a little bit. They'll get some good results here and there, but I can't honestly see them progressing any further at this rate. They could prove me wrong. I mean, Magnussen did an absolute blinder at the start of last season. But Nico Hulkenberg, he's been out for a couple of seasons. He's only had the odd drives here and there, which 2020 amounted to a few, but 2021, 2022, those drives weren't really anything to talk about, to be honest. As for Williams, new driver, Logan Sargent, along with Alex Albon, they'll score points this season. That's of no doubt, but with the loss of the sponsorship money that came from Latifi, to be honest, I'd rather lose the sponsorship money than have to deal with Nicholas Latifi for another season. He should not have been on the grid at all, and I will stand by that. Call those who say go Tifi. He isn't a goat. He's an absolute nuisance. He's the Taki Inui of the modern age, and he shouldn't have been in Formula 1 at all. Sorry, rant over. I'm going to make a couple of predictions for the races this year. And that is, to start with, and I'm going to come straight out and say it, Las Vegas will be a dead race. Now, there's a lot of hype surrounding Las Vegas, all the run down the strip and everything that's going to look spectacular. Yeah, it'll look spectacular, but is it like a spectacular scene we're looking for, or are we looking for a track that's actually going to produce good racing? And that's my fear. Singapore looks spectacular, do not get me wrong, and on the games at least it's been a fun circuit to drive. But in terms of racing, IRL, not so much. And I fear the same thing is going to happen to Vegas as well. Meanwhile, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm going to say the best races this year will be, again, Silverstone and Interlagos. Now, these two mainstays of the Formula 1 calendar have never failed to disappoint. Especially Silverstone. I mean, the last 5 races have been nothing short of absolute fun. 2020, you can say that was probably not so much, but I have to say that every other race around Silverstone since 2014, I would have to say, has been 4-star minimum. And the same can be said for Sao Paulo. The racing you get at Sao Paulo is so good, and I can't believe that they were considering axing this place. It is such a great circuit to race on, to drive. You can do everything with it. Now, on to any other miscellaneous predictions. I'm going to say Alpine will get at least one race win this season. I'll say Nick de Vries will outperform Yuki Tsunoda. He's got plenty of race experience in Formula E under his belt, and those cars are a lot more loose to drive than what the F1 cars are. What else can we say? I reckon in the top 3 teams, in the top 3 dreams, all their drivers will get race wins this season. So guys, that's been some of my predictions for the F1 2023 season. I hope this has opened your thoughts and minds to any predictions you may have, and if you want to, feel free to leave them down in the comments, and hit the like and subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos in the future or beforehand. I am David Clayton of KZR Racing, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.